incredible. Yeah, amazing feeling. Leaving the garage, just the whole experience, just being, while I'm in blue, I joined the team to be in red, but yeah, being in the garage, the experience we had on Thursday with the Tifosi in Milan, and then to come here and drive out the garage in a red car, it's all I ever thought it would be, and more. So P1 was a good session, and then P2 we made some changes and the car was a bit worse. So we know at least the good thing is we can go back on that.
I know it's only Friday and we can't read too much into it, but aside from FP2 being a bit worse, generally you're pretty happy with how today went?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think this, as I said, P1 was feeling really strong, and I said that P2 was definitely much more of a struggle, but it's better to have that in P2 and learn from that rather than P3. So lots of positives to take from today, and we'll do some work overnight, and I hope that tomorrow we can be better. I think the McLaren's obviously still very fast, and I think it's very close with everyone in the top 5 and top 10. So it'll be a challenge, and it's not easy to overtake, and I've obviously got that penalty, which is unfortunate, but yeah, better have it now than next year, I guess.
If you can find something overnight, can you dream of a really exciting weekend ahead?
Well, as I said, wherever I qualify, I'm starting 5 places back from that, which is not great, and I think it's going to be really difficult to overtake us. We're all so close. Within the top 15, I think it is. So, but I do feel optimistic. I still feel like I could potentially move forwards. I was much happy with the car today. So I hope that continues tomorrow. It will continue tomorrow because I'll make the changes tonight and come with a fresh head tomorrow.
Okay, so good luck this weekend. Thanks.
How do you live the first day as a Ferrari pilot in the Temple of Speed? Is it just another circuit? Or is it an emotional and technical rebirth for a legend like Lewis Hamilton? The free practice session 1 began with the usual flow of aerodynamic tests, long batches and technical adjustments. But there was a different tension in the air. The camera followed it. Everyone knew what was at stake. And then it happened. 1 minute, 20 seconds and 117 thousandths. Hamilton was not only the fastest in the session, but he did it with authority. Behind, his partner Charles Leclerc, 169 thousandths. That result by itself might seem anecdotal. After all, it is just a free practice. But what really surprised was the context. It was just the second time in the entire season that Hamilton managed to lead an official session. Since his arrival in Ferrari in early 2025, the road had not been simple. Adapting to a new machine, a new cultural and technical environment, and at a pressure that only exists in Maranello, had been in steep mountain. This performance in Monza, however, was not a blow of luck or an isolated coincidence. It was the result of weeks of silent work, intense conversations with engineers, almost surgical pilot adjustments, and progressive symbiosis with SF25. And all crystallized at that time. It was the moment Ferrari stopped looking like an experiment for Hamilton and began to be his home. It was not just a quick lap. There was a symbolic statement behind that stopwatch. I'm here. I'm back. And this time with Ferrari. The Tifosi, who have always been intensely emotional and sometimes ruthlessly critical, needed only that flash to start dreaming. In the stands, the red flags waved strongly. Some cried. Others applauded with contained rage. Monza had believed again. And he had done it thanks to a 40-year-old British who had nothing to prove, but much to reconquer. Hamilton knew what that day meant. Not only for what had been achieved in sports terms, but for what it represented emotionally. Monza in his career had always been rival territory. As a McLaren pilot first and after Mercedes, he was many times the enemy to beat. But now the stage had changed completely. For the first time, each curve, every line, every centimeter of the track belonged to it. And that is where the moment becomes historical. Not because there is a record broken or because he has won a race yet, but because for the first time, Hamilton aligned himself with Ferrari's soul. And that type of connection is what makes everything change. In just 60 minutes of practice, the story of a whole season was rewritten. What until now seemed a year of transition, adjustments and frustrations, became a history of potential redemption. Because when a pilot like Hamilton feels at home and finds rhythm in the most symbolic circuit in Ferrari's history, something deep is activated. A cycle begins. And if something has taught us Formula One is that the championships are decided many times in these invisible moments for the points. but decisive for the narrative. This was the moment that changed everything. A silent but brutal script turn. And now the entire Formula One rivals, fans, press and paddock knows it. Hamilton has aroused. And he has done it in the place where he weighs, and it hurts more for his opponents. Monza. When the figure of Lewis Hamilton is observed in the modern era of Formula One, it is easy to keep the numbers. 7 world championships, more than 100 victories, decades of domain and absolute leadership. But in Monza 2025, what we saw was something else. We saw a man not to a competing machine. We saw someone who is living a deep internal transformation, away from traditional foci. What Hamilton said at the press conference after practice was revealing, not only for what he said, but for how he said it. There was a pause before his first words. A look towards the background, as looking for the images of his past, to contrast them with the present. And when he finally spoke, he did it from a more intimate place than a technician. It's really unique. When you come to Monza with another team, you just get a partial sensation of what a Scuderia Ferrari HP pilot experiences during this weekend. Because true greatness is not always winning, but knowing how to rebuild. Monza was not just a return to the top from the competitive point of view. It was the validation of a much more complex internal process. The process of a man who, far from clinging to his past, chose to immerse himself in a new identity. Not to repeat what was already, but to reinvent yourself. Why use old pieces in a new car? Because the geometry of certain components of the SF24 was optimized to generate stability without compromising peak speed. In other words, they were more efficient for this type of layout. Instead of forcing a technical evolution that was not completely validated, Ferrari chose to mix the best of two worlds, the base and most refined platform of the SF25, with the proven efficiency of certain elements of 2024. This type of hybrid strategy is not common in modern Formula One, where teams usually advance line to line with their developments. But what Ferrari did was break that logic and demonstrate technical flexibility that is not normally attributed to them. And most importantly, this configuration was not simply an aerodynamic change, but a strategic decision deeply connected to the type of piloting that Hamilton has developed throughout his career. The SF25 in this optimized version for Monza became a high-speed stability car, which responded softly at the entrance of curve and allowed Hamilton to apply all its instinct in braking and exits. The car spoke to him and he understood. You didn't have to fight the steering wheel or correct in each curve. It was an extension of his body. This technical harmony was evident in the partials. In the lines, the car reached speeds greater than 345 km per hour without showing signs of imbalance. In fast curves such as Ascari or parabolic, the SF25 maintained the line with surgical precision. And in braking, longitudinal stability allowed each meter to rush without losing traction at the exit. It was not just speed, it was balance. To find a car that allowed Hamilton to attack, but also manage. Be aggressive without punishing tires. And that balance, that connection between pilot and machine, was what turned a free practice into an alarm signal for all rivals. Because when Ferrari is fast in Monza, it is good news. But when Ferrari is intelligent, flexible, and technically daring, then he becomes a true contender. And that was what happened. This SF25 was not simply fast. It was an adaptive engineering work. A car that knew how to look back to move forward. And in the hands of an inspired Lewis Hamilton, that combination becomes dangerously competitive. This is what differentiates a good technical strategy from a great championship decision. It was not a point victory, but it was a conceptual victory. In Monza, Ferrari showed that he has learned to think differently. And that Hamilton, when the car accompanies him, is still a predator. When a free practice marks a point of emotional, technical, and competitive inflection, it is inevitable to ask what implications it is beyond the weekend. What Hamilton and Ferrari showed in Monza is not a simple flash of good performance. It is a clear symptom that something is maturing under the surface. And most importantly, it is the confirmation that the Hamilton-Ferrari project is no longer just symbolic or commercial. It is becoming a real threat to the championship. What Monza revealed is that the integration process between pilot and team has reached a crucial stage. Hamilton is no longer in an adaptation phase. It is starting to actively influence the development of the car. Not only pilot it, transforms it. His experience is being used as a technical resource within Ferrari, something that did not happen in Mercedes since 2020, when the team stopped evolving aggressively after reaching a dominant stability point. In Ferrari, Hamilton has recovered the role of catalyst. He has forced engineers to question what they were taken for granted, to revalue work methodologies, to think beyond simulation software. He is pushing the limits of internal communication, of feedback between sessions, and above all, he is reactivating a culture of ambition that the Scuderia had lost in recent years. But there is something even more relevant than the technical aspect: the narrative. And that raises a question: was Monza an isolated moment or the beginning of something much bigger? Are we witnessing Ferrari's real resurrection as a dominant power, led by a reborn Hamilton? Or did we simply see a technical mirage that will not be repeated in more demanding circuits? I would like to know your opinion. Do you think Hamilton can be world champion with Ferrari? Do you trust that this level shown in Italy remains at the next dates of the calendar? Or do you think that Red Bull and McLaren still have more lethal weapons in development? Leave it to the comments.